is endocrine system. And I'm going to show you both. So this is my chapter which I'm going to go through. And it is more than you need because you have to connect things. But after you understand the chapter, you need to know the most important thing of this lecture. So I have some slides here which are white. If you see the white slide, and there are some slides which are yellow. In my study guide, there are only yellow slides on that. So I removed all the white slides. I could have told you that you do it, but I did it for you. So little spoon feeding. But also, if for example, you see this part. So in this one, you have the italicized and bold, and you have non-italicized and bold. My study guide has only these ones. So I removed this from here. So that's the difference between study guide and this. I took out the white slides, all the white, and I took out all these. Because I feel like I can explain to you what is negative feedback, but it is not important in response to this chapter or this slide. So that is the difference between my study guide. And luckily you have to go through that. So you can see all of them are italicized now. Okay? So let's go through this. Okay, so what do you think about endocrine system? Anything comes out to your mind? Endocrine system.
Hormones.
Hormones, yes. So the endocrine system is basically a system which releases hormones. And these hormones are very important for you. And these hormones are very specific for very specific things. So one hormone will not work for the other things. So these are very important for your body. There are a lot of hormones, lot of endocrine organs. Yes?
A marker, giant race marker.
You want to borrow this?
The classroom's down here.
Okay.
Thank you. I will bring it.
Okay, so you know the concept of this system, right? And the organs which release these hormones, they are called as endocrine organs. So there is an organ called pancreas, right? Pancreas is actually endocrine organ, also it is exocrine organ. So that's how you understand exocrine and endocrine. Exocrine means it does not produce hormones. It will produce some enzymes, buffers or something else, but not the hormone. So pancreas is an example which has two parts of it. And it is an exocrine part and it's an endocrine part. Exocrine part produces other things that hormone, and endocrine part produces. So, and you will see the slide today, whoever is coming to the lab today, that exocrine part called acini and endocrine part called islet. So you will have to see islet and acini, and this is an important part of your lab exam to identify. So this is the one which is learning outcomes, which I said you don't need to basically print it out. So wasted of paper, I'm supposed to give you, on the blackboard. But so what is this? Basically what you are learning. So they have different parts, section 1, 2, 3, and out of those they have divided into 16.1, 16.2. Everything is taken care in your study guide, so you don't need to print it out. So first we will talk about the similarities between endocrine and nervous system and how they communicate. Then we'll talk about what types of hormones they are and what are the organs they release and what do these hormones do. How does this hormone action happens? How hypothalamus is called as thermostat of the body. It controls everything because hypothalamus is connected to one of the glands. Do you know? Which gland? Hypothalamus. Pituitary.
Is it?
Yes. It's connected to pituitary. Hypothalamus actually is the one which sends the message to pituitary, and pituitary releases the hormones, and it triggers kidney, adrenal gland. It triggers all the endocrine organs to release hormones when they are needed. So hypothalamus is important. Then location of these organs out of those pituitary gland, what are the hormones of the pituitary, and then we will talk about negative and positive feedback. Yes.
Will you have, like the diagrams on tests that we have to label?
No, I don't give any.
Okay.
I don't give any diagram. We go through the diagrams in the lab. Okay, so don't tell this Mike because he will think I'm an easy teacher, okay? So that's going to be a bad point for me, okay? Okay, so what are the similarities between nervous system and endocrine system? How they can be similar? So both of these systems, they use chemicals which bind to a specific receptor. So for example, nervous system uses chemicals called neurotransmitters. Endocrine system uses a chemical which is called hormone. And these hormones or neurotransmitter, when they are released, they have to attach to a receptor. Until they attach to the receptor, they cannot work. And these receptors are very specific for specific hormones. So both these systems uses the chemical neurotransmitter. These are chemical messengers in the nervous system, and hormone, these are the chemical messengers in the endocrine system. The common goal for both these systems is to basically preserve homeostasis. And what is homeostasis? Do you know? Like your body has a specific set. Like at home, for example, you have a heating and air conditioning system, right? You set up things on whatever you want. So body have a setup of things, and whenever this setup is disturbed, then the body can cause a problem, can cause diseases and all those things. So that's called homeostasis, which is a setup. Outside is snowing, it's minus temperature, but our body temperature stays same, right? That is because of the homeostasis. So what is the function of these two systems, like endocrine system and nervous system, is to preserve the homeostasis. And this homeostasis can be coordinated with the cells, tissues, organs, and systems. Okay, how they communicate in between cells. So they can directly communicate, like one cell sitting here, the other cell is sitting, then they are communicating with each other. So based on that, there is a system called paracrine communication. So one cell, for example, it has inside. So cell is surrounded by what? Plasma membrane, right? Another cell is surrounded by plasma membrane. So these two cells, they have to communicate with each other. So there is a fluid outside the cell called extracellular fluid. Okay? So these paracrine communication is basically limited to local area where chemical mediators, which are paracrine factors, are concentrated. So basically one cell here, the other cell here. So this is local, like your local area. So one cell and the other cell, when they are communicating in the local field, that's called paracrine communication. But endocrine communication is not local, because what happens, this communication is through the blood, and blood goes everywhere in the body. So it cannot be local. Once the hormone is released, it goes through the blood and it will affect the whole body. So therefore, these two communications are very different from each other. And then there is one synaptic communication. Where do you learn synaptic communication? In the nervous system, right? in the nervous system, what are the cells of the nervous system? Are neuron, right? They have main cells are neuron, and neuron have is surrounded by glial cells called neuroglial cells, which we did in ANP1, right? Neuroglial cells, everybody did in ANP1. So synaptic communication means they go across the synapse. So one cell is here, then it will have a synapse, and this cell will communicate through this synapse to the other cell, and that's called a synaptic communication. So if you see this picture, it will explain to you. Right, so this cell is close to this cell, so these are close by cells, so they can basically communicate from this cell to this cell or this cell to this cell. Paracrine communication, so this is the direct communication. Then paracrine communication means you have this cell and there are nearby cells. They are not close to that exactly like this, but they are in the local vicinity. So this cell and this cell, so now they are sending these chemical messengers to this cell and this cell and this cell. That is paracrine. Then endocrine system, so for example, these are endocrine glands. They will release some chemicals called hormones. This hormone goes, what is this? What is? Blood vessel, right? So these hormones go to the blood vessels and blood goes everywhere, right? So this is endocrine system. This is synaptic communication. So this is one neuron, for example, and actually you must have done this definitely in ANP1. The neuron has the axon, and axon ends up into synaptic knob. The synaptic knob has this vesicles which contains neurotransmitter. So this axon from one cell, and this is an axon or cell body from the other cell. So these neurotransmitter are released, and then they go through the process called synapse. So from the synapse, these hormones, they are attaching to the receptor. So this side is receptor, one side is the neurotransmitter. So this is called synaptic communication. Hormones based on their chemical structures, and this is a little chemistry over here. Everybody takes the chemistry, right? So these hormones are basically classified into different groups based on their chemistry, based on their chemical structure. Amino acid derivative, peptide hormones, and lipid derivatives. So the lipid derivatives comes from the lipid, this comes from the amino acid. Amino acid makes what? Amino acid are part of proteins. So this is protein derivative, this is peptide derivative, this is lipid derivative. Now, amino acid derivative, there are three types. One is called thyroid hormone. It is produced by thyroid gland, which is very easy to remember. Catecholamines, and these catecholamines are these: epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. So epinephrine and norepinephrine are released from adrenal medulla, and you will see the adrenal gland. Where is adrenal gland? Do you know? On the top of one? No? Okay, it is sitting on the top of kidney. So adrenal gland has two parts, cortex and medulla. So this is coming from the adrenal medulla, and dopa is released from the brain. Third one is melatonin, which is derivative of tryptophan, and it is secreted by pineal gland or pineal. Some people call pineal, some people call pineal. This is Latin language, which is a dead language, so you can call anything. So again, if I give you a question and I say thyroid hormone, catecholamine, melatonin, and I give you an example of peptide hormone, and I can ask which one is not an amino acid derivative. So if you know these three, you can say, oh, peptide hormone is not an amino acid derivative. So these kinds of questions I will be asking. Okay, so this is the chemical structure of that. I don't have to go through that. for the anatomy course. This is, for example, thyroid hormone, which is thyroxine, catecholamines are epinephrine, tryptophan is from melatonin. Lipid derivatives are these called eukosinoid and steroid hormones. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I didn't have any video of the class, I had to bring my own.
Oh, yeah, I bring my own book. So the peptide hormones, most of the hormones in the body are peptide hormones. And they are coming out as prohormone. Prohormones means they're precursor. So they are released as a prohormone, which are inactive form, and then they become activated. So these prohormones are inactive precursor that are converted to active form of hormones. Pro means before, so it's not inactive form. An example is these hormones, thyroid stimulating hormone, LH, luteinizing hormone, FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, so these three. Then lipid derivatives, they are actually having carbon rings and side chains. They are built from either fatty acids or cholesterol. So they have in their structure either fatty acid, eukosinoid or cholesterol, and these are based on that. There are two types, eukosinoid or steroid. Eukosinoids are paracrine factors which coordinate cellular activities and enzymatic in extracellular fluid. These are two types of eukosinoid, leukotrienes and prostaglandins. Sometimes, in the TV, they come from leukotriene for allergy purposes, so these are all eukosinoid. And these are steroids. Steroid hormones, as the name suggests, they are released from the reproductive organs, like androgen from testes, estrogen and progesterone from ovaries. And adrenal cortex, they release actually 25 hormones, and they are called as, so you don't have to worry about 25 names, but they are called corticosteroids. Kidney also releases a hormone called calcitriol. So remember, if I give you calcitriol, corticosteroids, and out of these eukosinoids, you should be able to see which ones are amino acid derivative, which ones are peptide, and which ones are lipid derivatives. And this is again amino acid derivatives, and these are lipid derivatives. Overview of the endocrine system, they include organs, and the organs which are called endocrine organs, their primary function is to release hormone. So, and these are the organs of the body whose primary function is to release hormone, including hypothalamus. It's a part of hypothalamus. Where it is? In the brain. Pituitary gland is attached to the brain. Thyroid gland, we will go through this in the lab, where they are. Adrenal gland, this is on the top of the kidney. Pancreas, this is in the digestive system. And islet part is the one which is the hormonal part. Pineal gland, which is actually in the other side of the hypothalamus, and we will see that. And parathyroid glands are embedded on the thyroid glands. But also endocrine system also include other organs that secrete hormone, but their endocrine function is secondary. So their primary function is not to release hormone, but secondary function is to release hormone. So these are primary function of these organs is hormone release. Secondary function of these organs is actually endocrine, means they release the hormones. So now you can see here organs with secondary function: heart, thymus. Thymus is sitting on the top of the heart. Digestive system, for example, they also release some hormones, but secondarily. Kidneys, gonads, like ovary and testes, and these are hypothalamus. Their primary function is to release hormones, and this hypothalamus on one side is pituitary, the other side is pineal gland. Parathyroid, which are sitting on the top of thyroid, pituitary gland, thyroid, adrenal, and pancreas. Organs whose primary function is organ release. So this is basically all these, and I will take one by one. So for example, hypothalamus. So they secrete hormones which are involved in fluid balance, smooth muscle contraction, and in control of hormone secretion by pituitary gland. So this is overall about hypothalamus. This is pituitary gland, like this is overall, but we will go into detail. They secrete hormone which stimulate melatonin production, and also multiple hormones which are controlling the activity of adrenal, thyroid, and reproductive organs. Thyroid, they affect the metabolic activity. So the main function of this thyroid gland to release hormones which are involved in this metabolic activity. So now we will take one by one. First we will take organs whose primary function is hormone release. Adrenal again, so they secrete hormones involved with mineral balance, metabolic activity, and stress. Medulla relieves epinephrine and norepinephrine during sympathetic activation. And pancreas, which is islet part of this, they release hormone regulating the glucose uptake. And there is a disease which is related to the, what is that? Glucose? Diabetes. Pineal gland, they secrete melatonin, which affects reproductive function and circadian rhythms. Parathyroid, this is important for regulation of calcium. So this is actually overall view of every single organ which are related to this. Now, there are some other organs which we talked about. Their primary function is not to release hormone. Their secondary function is to release hormone. These are heart, thymus, digestive tract, kidney, and gonads. So you should know the organs whose primary function is to release hormone, and there are other ones whose secondary function is to release hormones. So now we will talk in like how the hormones react or how they connect. So the hormones and receptors. So when the hormone is released, this chemical, it has to attach with the receptor. And if they do not have receptors or the receptor is not working, that hormone does not work. And there is a disease like the diabetes is one of the examples. Some people, they don't have right receptors, or this hormone doesn't attach with the receptor. So therefore, these hormones and receptors both are very important. And these, so for example, when you respond to a hormone as a target cell, which is affecting cell, target means which cell is affecting it, must have the appropriate protein receptor. And the receptor could be in the plasma membrane, which is the membrane surrounding the cell, or in the cytoplasm or nucleus. So there are two kinds of those. Receptors when they are in the plasma membrane. So these are, so have you know that the plasma membrane is made up of, in ANP1 we did it, like, I didn't teach for a while, but there is a chapter that it has the head and tails, you know that. So the head is the hydrophobic part and tail is the hydrophilic part. Hydrophobic means it cannot dissolve with water. Hydrophilic means water loving, means it can dissolve in water. So receptor in plasma membrane, so these receptors of water soluble hormone, they cannot cross because the head of this is hydrophobic. So they cannot cross that. So So what they do, they act as first messenger, and then this first messenger relay the message to the second messenger because they actually facilitate their entry. And second messenger, so first messenger give the message to an intracellular, intracellular means inside the cell, that's called a second messenger. And these are types of second messengers like cyclic AMP, and some people call cyclic, some people call cyclic AMP, and calcium ions. So for example here, so this is a hormone. So if for example thyroid gland is releasing thyroxine hormone, for example, so if this is thyroxine hormone, so this is the receptor. And receptor has to have a very specific structure. So you know these round things, they will attach to this. And every hormone has a very different kind of receptor. So this receptor, this hormone will attach to this receptor. Now because they are water soluble, so they cannot reach directly. So they have to come through this membrane. So these are the heads, and in between are the tails. So what happens, this hormone go to this receptor, which is basically a primary or first messenger, and this first messenger click to this and activate this hormone. So that's called the first messenger versus second messenger. So this is an example over here. So this hormone attaches to this first messenger, it activates this protein, and then this is cyclic AMP, which is called second messenger, and this second messenger, they activate this. So that's going through that. Here also the same way, cyclic AMP, they do some reaction on this, and that enzymatic activity can be reduced. So if you have more enzymatic activity, this hormone is released and it goes, it directly cannot go, it goes through this protein, and then they reduce the enzymatic activity. And the same way, instead of cyclic AMP here, they use calcium ions level. So this hormone, again, primary messenger or first messenger, this is the second messenger, and then this is the calcium, so that they will activate the enzymatic activity. So this is showing how water-soluble hormone they can get it. And this is about cyclic AMP and calcium ions. So calcium ions, they function in combination with intracellular, intra again, inside, extra, outside. Intracellular protein called calmodulin to activate the enzyme. So cyclic AMP is the second messenger. This is also calcium ion second messenger because they activate through this calmodulin. What is the time now? 7? Right?
7:06.
Okay. I guess I'm going to, in 5 minutes, I'm going to stop here. So the receptor in the plasma membrane, so this is calling about how it works. So I'm not going to go through this because I'll show you a video. So how it works. Okay.
The endocrine system consists of hormone-producing tissues located throughout the body. The circulating hormones control the rates of body processes and maintain homeostasis. Within an endocrine gland, endocrine cells secrete hormones, which diffuse into nearby capillaries. The cardiovascular system transports these hormones throughout the body, affecting target cells in various tissues. Target cells for a specific hormone have receptors that bind the unique
So you
three-dimensional
have a
shape of that
specific
hormone.
structure to bind it.
Cells that lack a specific hormone receptor are unresponsive to that hormone, even if a high concentration of the hormone is present around the cells. Although cells express a variety of receptors, we'll focus on one particular class: receptors that bind water-soluble hormones and exert their effects through the intracellular second messenger, cyclic AMP. These receptors are embedded in the cell's plasma membrane because water-soluble hormones cannot enter the target cell directly. A hormone molecule, acting as the first messenger, binds to its receptor, causing the receptor to change shape. The receptor can now activate specific intracellular G proteins.
So this is the protein.
The activation process begins with the release of a GDP molecule from the G protein in exchange for a GTP molecule. This causes the G protein to change shape and become active. The hormone-bound receptor activates many individual G proteins, which greatly amplifies the signal from a single hormone molecule. An activated G protein diffuses along the plasma membrane until it binds to and activates the enzyme adenylate cyclase. Once active,
So this is too much for you
adenylate
guys
cyclase
to
converts
understand, but
ATP
that's why I'm just.
to the second messenger, cyclic AMP. These many molecules of cyclic AMP from each activated cyclase enzyme represent a further amplification of the initial hormone signal. The increased concentration of cyclic AMP activates enzymes known as protein kinases. These activated protein kinases phosphorylate a variety of proteins within the cell. This changes the activity of those proteins and generates the cell's hormone response. The cell's response is characterized by the specific proteins present in the cytoplasm, only some of which can be phosphorylated by protein kinase.
Now hormone is released,
The
but it has
cellular
to be
response
deactivated.
diminishes rapidly once the hormone is no longer bound to its receptor. G proteins hydrolyze their bound GTP to GDP, returning to their inactive state, and dissociate from adenylate cyclase. This ends cyclic AMP production. Existing cyclic AMP is degraded by the enzyme phosphodiesterase, which is already present in the cytoplasm. As the cyclic AMP concentration returns to resting levels, protein kinase inactivates, preventing further protein phosphorylation. The target cell has now returned to its pre-stimulus condition, ready to respond to future hormone signals. The signal of a water-soluble hormone binding to a receptor on the plasma membrane is amplified through the activation of many G proteins and the generation of even more cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP activates many protein kinases, which affect many thousands of intracellular proteins, all shaping the target cell's response. The response of many target cells produces the homeostatic and regulatory effects controlled by the endocrine system.
Okay. Okay, so I have an addendum